The last video, episode 129 of Angel Hakame, that video was taken in Dallas at our Keys to Success meeting. And this video, episode 130 of Amol Rai, was also taken in Dallas. And so I got both of their permissions. Hey, can I post this? I loved what they said on stage. And Hell was just, I mean, that was his promotion to organizational consultant. I mean, kind of a big deal. You get promoted to OC when a certain benchmark happens. I'm not going to go into detail in this video, but we're talking about a 7-figure bonus for every consultant. Kind of a big deal, right? And you can tell through his emotions, it was quite a journey for him, being a migrant from Venezuela to, being successful here in the United States. Just loved that video, loved that speech. Lots of wet eyes in that speech with Angel. And this particular speech with Amal is, listen, he's about to get promoted this coming summer in Toronto. By the time this episode airs, he may have already been promoted. But I really like his story. I mean, as a youngster, he lived in several countries, right? He lived in the United Kingdom, he lived in Miami, lived in Toronto, lived in 3 countries in Africa. So he traveled a lot, comes from a very successful family where they really wanted him to be a doctor. So he finds himself at University of Toronto, finished 3 years of medical school, then he joins our business. And he had some voices in his head from his uncles who were very highly successful as business people, around the world. And so he instinctively knew he wanted to be a businessman. He didn't really want to be a doctor, but he followed his parents' advice on being a doctor. Obviously, he's smart enough to be a doctor as well, too. But he rolled the dice. His uncles told him, listen, if you want to get into business, get involved in sales, learn the art of selling, and you're going to find yourself, getting the right training to be a business person. And so love what he had to say. He gives 3 tips in this video. I hope you guys enjoy. Congratulations, Amal, and congratulations on Hell. We're very proud of you guys.
What I wanted to do, obviously I'm doing my official promotion in Canada in a couple months, but I wanted to just share some lessons that I've learned. I'm going to talk about 3 main lessons I've learned in the business in the last decade and a half. Let me talk to you guys about the first lesson. And the first lesson I learned about commitment. Commitment isn't something that you will learn over time, right? It's a decision that you're going to make. It doesn't matter about what you know, it's just going and taking that decision. And a lot of the consultants here that are in the front, it's usually, and what I've noticed over the years, it's a common denominator amongst all of them. I've heard their stories and they've got promoted, and it's always been, what I've understood is the commitment they've had to the business. Commitment requires sacrifice at times, and rejecting and saying no to impulsive thoughts. You have to learn to build this muscle to stay on track in this business and push through the tough times. I remember many times, many of us in the business who've been here long enough, you've thought about quitting, whether it was the days in the field or maybe even if you were an owner or promoting owner. And I remember those times. And I just wasn't able to do it. I looked at myself and like, that's not who I am. And I decided to stay in the business and keep pushing through. So, commitment's been my best friend. It's helped me a lot of the way through. So that's my first lesson that I can teach you all. The second lesson is the 4, 5s, and 8s are no joke, right? The 4, 5s, and 8s, the good old 4, 5s, and 8s, right? In my eyes, they're the meal ticket, right? It's how we run our offices, how we teach the new guy that walks in, or you hire a recruiter, you want to get them on the phones, calling resumes. The ones that learn to stay within the system and build their crews always find a way to last in the business. Every big business out there in the world has foundational practices to help them run their businesses and build their teams. And I think for us, I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree, the 4, 5s, and 8s does that for us. It's something that we all share. Every office promotes it and talks about it. Every office, I'm sure, hangs up those 4, 5s, and 8 posters in their walls, right? So I know we have it in multiple walls in our office. That tells you how important that is in our business. The third lesson, being coachable and having a student mentality is going to help you at every level of the business. It has for me. And you learn to master every level of the business with your coaches and the field leadership team. This is the way to stay or have longevity in our business. I've seen people come and go in the business, and I always look at it and say, okay, like, people are in the business for a long time. What's something interesting about them? They're always being coached. They're with their mentors. They're locked in all the time. And that's something I've noticed about this business. My advice also is to not make any big decisions without your mentors, right? You'll save yourself a lot of headache and time. I've been on both sides. I've made decisions impulsively and under the gun, and sometimes very emotionally, and it doesn't usually work out. And I've made my best decisions when I've involved my coaches. So I would, really urge you guys up there in the crowd today, like, when you're making big decisions, read Crucial Conversations as well. That's a really good book, right? But I would involve your coaches. Lastly, what I want to say is that, this business is for everyone. John was talking about a little bit of my background. So I'm an East African Indian, right? So, my dad, from Kenya, my mom from Uganda. And when I was, when I joined the business, I was in school. I was going to become a doctor. This is what I was going after, to be a doctor. And I wanted to learn sales skills, so I decided to join the business. And the business won me over. I'm like, I'm not going to be a doctor, right? I'm gonna do this business. And so I went all in on this business, and I don't regret it one bit. If I had a do-over, I would do this business all over again. I would not have made a different decision, and that's how I feel about it. Yeah.
Woo!
Thank you. Yeah, like I've never had, you have your doubts. When I started in the business, it wasn't organic for me. You're a science major student, going to become a doctor. Nothing was organic. I had to learn the business. I had to put my mind to it. John, as he was speaking, I was an introvert, and I learned to become the extrovert. I put the suit on when I need to. But yeah, that's been my story.